Grace Wood. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thanks for joining me on Nurture the Mind. We're here to talk about some mental health. As you and I expressed at the coffee shop and conversations before that we've both dealt with some pretty troubling times, and it seems that, is it accurate in saying that anxiety's been more prevalent for you than depression, or do you deal with both? Like, which one do you deal with more than the other?
I think I see the anxiety every day, and I think that's what causes most of the depression.
So what situations, like, what do you find, where do you see the anxiety in your day-to-day life? Like, what are some of the things that make you anxious?
Grocery store runs, going to the gym, being at the Indianola YMCA instead of South. It took me a long time to get used to the people that I would be working out around every day.
Uh-huh.
When I'm at the gym, and most people at the gym, you're not focused on the people around you, you're focused on your own workout. Well, in my head, everyone else there is focused on me and how much I'm lifting and what I'm doing and if my form is right. So
That's not the case.
I know. But the gym lately, being at a new gym location has been hard because I don't know these people and I don't know what they're thinking when they're working out. It's a big thing. The holidays stress me out and give me anxiety too.
Why?
Well, making sure that we have all the gifts we need, cleaning the house for when guests are gonna come over, having food that everyone can eat, take on a lot of those duties. Because I'm home. My parents are both working right now and my sister's at school, so.
So you were telling me how, like, you've always just kind of been an obsessive person. Do you feel like there are parts of you that when you went to college changed, and then when you come back to your parents' house, you start to take on how you used to act, or like is it still just like obsession all the time? Like what do you think has changed since you went to college?
Yeah, I think I got a little more relaxed at college. Other than my class schedule, like I didn't have like chores really to do every day like I did at
Hey,
home.
fuck boy.
Mother.
Hey, fuck boy. Fuck boy. Dude, move. Keep going.
No, being at school, in some instances I was more relaxed, but actually I think I told myself I was more relaxed and I let things build up more, and then I'd have like every once in a while really, really big breakdown just because I didn't have a super structured routine at college, especially since classes were mostly online. So I'd get all my schoolwork done and I'd go to the gym, but I do a lot of like sitting in my dorm, like just being nervous about nothing. Now that I'm back at home, I'm back to like the same cleaning habits. Everyone's shoes have to be put away, no shoes at the door. We have a new puppy. She has toys everywhere. I put all of her toys away. She gets them all back out. Like parents are like, hey, she's a puppy. Like, leave her toys around. I don't like those toys everywhere.
Yeah.
And then I have dishes to do all the time, which is.
Do you have to do them all the time?
No, I don't have to. I do. I like to do them.
Yeah. So is it just like as soon as you see like a stimuli that bothers you, you have this instant urge to like fix it?
Yep.
And is it mostly just like tidiness? It's just like things around the house, or
yes.
Like I was telling you at the coffee shop, like a lot of mine is conversations with people, and for some reason I just don't let them flow. Do you ever feel that? Do you ever feel like social anxiety? Feeling like the conversation has to be constructed in a certain way?
I don't have a lot of that, but I do know what you're talking about. When I had interviews for that like scholarship program I was telling you about, I had things in my head that I like needed to tell the judges, and I was like, oh, I really hope they ask me this. I really hope I can bring this up, and I find ways to bring up things that I felt like needed to be said.
Yeah.
Unnaturally. I do know what you mean.
Yeah. But you don't really experience that much on a day-to-day basis, so it's not really like around other people.
No, I'm not really talking to a lot of people
Yeah.
right now.
Well, you're talking
My
about
parents.
anxiety at a new gym, but you seem to be fitting in at the front desk. I mean, you were very talkative, and like all the conversations we have had have been really cool, and like Because we started like talking
Yeah.
about mental health the last time that I was at the gym.
Yeah. No, I get along with everyone really well there, and I feel like I'm not as nervous and anxious as I am. I'm really good at meeting new people and like connecting with people. I was really, really introverted, especially in high school, but I do think it's a strength of mine to like connect with people and build relationships.
Yeah, that's a good habit. Well, not really a habit, but like a personality trait to develop. Like that's something I want to get better at, because like I'm an extrovert, but like I still have a hard time introducing myself to new people, and I know that would really help with the podcast. You know, like if you run into, well, I guess that kind of worked out in my favor with this podcast, because I've only known you for a few weeks, and then we set this up. Yeah. Do you find yourself more anxious now though that you're at home and your routine is off? You're not as relaxed like you were up in Ames? I
do, but I'm starting to readjust, and my boss asked me last week, he's like, well, you're here for what, 4 more weeks? And I thought, oh my god, I have to move back up there in 4 weeks. So like now I'm getting adjusted back to being here, and the thought of moving back up there, as much as I miss it and I want to go back and be with my friends, the thought of like moving my clothes again and living somewhere else again like really stresses me out too, because I'm getting readjusted to being at home.
You're just gonna hit a rhythm probably by the time that you're when you're supposed to move.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how
changed.
Yeah, and that's how growing up was for me too. I hated the start of summer because school was over, and I just hated like being at home and having nothing to do. And then I hated going back to school in the fall because I just got used to summer and I didn't want to change that routine again.
Yeah, that's I mean, as we were talking about at the coffee shop, like one of the biggest ways that my anxiety manifests itself is through like structure and routine. And this always happens like right before the semester. I found myself a little bit more anxious back in August, right before classes started, because things change, so you have to get adjusted. But like that, I don't know, I think for anxious people, if they could really grip the idea of change, like that is an integral part of being a human. It's like things change like all the time, and
especially right now,
this year is a huge indication of change. And if you didn't figure out how to adapt, then I mean you're not really with the curve, because everybody was challenged this year.
And it's helped. You know, people have complained so much about 2020, and it has been a shit year. Like
It has been
very
shitty, dude.
but like think about how much we've grown from it. Like everyone.
Do you think that things that happened this year, like nothing's ever going to be the same the way we move forward? Like even when we get a vaccine, or like we can start going out and not wearing masks again, like do you think that like this is our new norm, and like social distancing is going to be how people move forward?
Yeah, I do. I had a TA from Taiwan talk to us about the SARS epidemic in Asia, and how mask wearing is like just common courtesy there still, however many years later. I think that a lot of what we do now, I know my parents, my mom especially, she has told me multiple times now, I can't imagine not wearing a mask anymore. Like she lives for this. The germaphobe in her like loves that people have to wear a mask and sanitize their hands all the time, and it does. Like when I was younger, I was really, really weird about germs. I'm not as bad anymore, but I have my teachers.
There's that obsession again.
Yeah, my teachers would give me crap for that, but I can't imagine not like washing my hands every time I touch anything now.
Really?
Yeah.
You're like Howie Mandel. He's a germaphobe. Yeah. I don't know. I just think like the interesting thing, like I want people to be careful and whatnot, but I feel like what's happened this year is it's destroying like the social fabric of like how we interact with each other. And I think that that's weird, and that's the problem, is because as humans, like biologically, the way we evolved is we were around people. That's how we developed emotions. And so what happens when we stop? Well, I mean, people still interact with each other, but like it's not as accepted now.
Right.
talk to people, like even like a handshake or like a hug, which like that's also part of the social interaction. Like people need that physical touch, and I'm not even talking about like intimacy. I'm just saying like sometimes like you need a pat on the back, or like if you haven't seen your friend forever, like go up and give them a hug.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
I get that. Yeah, no, and the washing the hands and being like afraid of germs, like I don't want to get sick and I don't want to get COVID, and I think that we should all be careful or whatever, but that's not about me being like super scared of the virus. That's about me having weird like compulsive things. Like I think after I touch a doorknob that I can like see the germs on my hand, weird stuff like that. Kind of like how I've talked to you about how I was about food for a long time.
Yeah.
I get these weird like visuals in my head that I think that if I don't wash my hands, I can see it and feel it on me and weird stuff.
Yeah, my obsession's never been like that, but it's just more like, oh, how would you describe it? I don't know. I just feel like sometimes, like when I'm really obsessive, you know, the thoughts are just like firing, like, and there's no way of controlling them. And like I've tried meditation I've really been doing it solidly for since the start of August, and I mean, there's been like a few moments where I felt like some pretty significant relief from it, but I don't know. I mean, I think like it's so hard. There's so many factors that go into it. Like it's not just meditation. Like I think it's also about how you operate in your day. So like the phone we were talking about too. Like putting the phone away and not having distractions. Like if you do that and then you combine that with meditation, like that's very powerful. Because when I lived up in Ames, me and my buddy Dakota were doing that, and my screen time was like 30 minutes for the entire day. So like I would put that phone away with whatever I was doing, so that distraction is away, and then you meditate and you find out what it's like to finally be present with your thoughts instead of frightened. And I will tell you that like that was probably like 2 or 3 weeks that we were doing that consistently. Like we would do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the middle of the day, and then 10 minutes before bed. Like I remember I went to the state fair, which there's a lot of people at the state fair. It could be like a very anxious environment. And I just remember like I was looking at everybody, like just people watching, and I felt no self-conscious behavior of like thinking, oh, what are they thinking about when they look at me? And that usually never happens. And so, yeah, I don't know. There's it's so multi-layered, so multifaceted to figure out. Like there's a lot of things that you can do in your day to reduce that anxiety.
Yeah.
But
the phone is a big one.
Phone's a big one.
Yeah.
I think it's the devil. I think it's the devil.
I watched
for so
that
many
Netflix
reasons.
documentary, and when they talk about people,
that's a heavy one.
Yeah. People look at their phone so that they don't have to think about what they really need to be thinking about, and that's really what it is. And then finally, when you do put your phone away at night and you're alone with your thoughts and everything that's been building up all day, like you're finally listening to yourself. Once you put that phone away, it's like, holy cow. So if you're
And why are people so afraid of their thoughts? Why are thoughts so intimidating to us? Like they develop fear. They produce emotions. Your thoughts, I mean, can sometimes control how you act. And so like I think that's one thing with obsession. If you notice, do you usually, this is what I gather, is that like when I'm like really racing and shit, that's when my obsession comes out, and like I'm going from like my kitchen and like doing the dishes, and then I'm coming in here and then I'm sweeping the floor because Miller's litter is everywhere, and then I'm going to my room to like put my clothes away and stuff. It's crazy like that, but like when my thoughts are firing, it makes me move faster. So I've really tried to challenge myself that like when that happens, I have to pause and I have to take a break and just kind of like, I don't know, sometimes it's even as simple as just like going outside for like 10 seconds and just like, you know, staring at the sky or something. But why are thoughts so intimidating? Why do they produce fear? Why is fear such a scary thing? It's usually perceived in our mind as a fear. And a lot of anxieties perceive threats. Like our ancestors actually had to deal with like bears and big cats and snakes in fear that they would actually die. And now as a society, we are comfortable. We don't have to worry about like where is our food going to come from. We have pretty much a big safety net. It's just that, I mean, there's like this loneliness epidemic on top of the pandemic. Like no one's connected anymore, and the phones don't help that either. Like you were saying, like everybody, turns to that thing to escape what they're feeling right now. I think the dude that, one of the bigger guys in that documentary talked about it being like a pacifier.
Yeah.
Our phones, social
Yep.
media. People just plug in, you know, because they're too afraid to deal with what's going on inside at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and they think that they're doing that to stay connected with people during the pandemic, but I feel like a lot of the social media disconnects us more than it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the flip side of the coin, right? Like, there's a lot of good things about social media if you know how to balance it. So like, you could be connected to people, like, say, you know, you're not addicted to checking it all the time throughout the day, but like, let's say you check it for like 15 to 30 minutes at the end of the day, you know, and you kind of get everything that you need. You see what some people are up to, what your family's doing, and that gives you still that sense of connection. Right. I think that's fine. I mean, I think in this time especially, that should be encouraged, but it's hard because, like, that's what I want to do, is get away from my phone. But then it's like, once you get rid of that, what do you have left?
Right.
Like, what people can you connect with? Because we are still in a pandemic, so like, it's been extremely hard to meet people.
Yep.
And I mean, I love my family to death, but like, 23, like, I don't always want to be around my family. You know, I want to meet people my age.
Right.
You know.
Oh yes, I understand.
So, how have you combated your anxiety over the years? Have you gotten better?
Yeah. Well,
you talked about grounding practices.
Yeah, grounding
earlier.
practices. My dad is able to ground me a lot too, and we focus on our breathing, and then, you know, like, what are 4 things you can see right now, 3 things you can touch right now, 2 things you can smell right now, and 1 thing you can taste right now, and like, just that grounding is good for me when I get really, really anxious and I really start thinking. My brain always goes to like, okay, Grace, you're going crazy. Like, Grace, you've totally lost it. They should put you in a psych ward. Like, you've lost your mind. And I think that's why people are so scared. That's why I'm so scared of my thoughts. When I really start thinking and I really start worrying, that's like what my brain always goes to. But that grounding for me is like, nope, you're in your bedroom, you're fine, you're the same person you were 20 minutes ago before this all started. Like, that helps me a lot. Having a dog has always helped me a lot. Being at college, not with my dog. Well, so my dog died a week before I moved into college, which was like,
damn.
Yeah, it was like the most traumatic.
Sucks.
It does.
That
it
sucks.
was like it was really hard. But being home with the puppy now, is like, just like, there's some.
Talking about pets, fuck boy.
There's like, I get a lot of joy from little fur balls that helps calm me down. And my last dog, this puppy is like just a crackhead, but the last dog was able to, Ellie would, you know, sit with me, and I think dogs can, and cats probably can too, tell when you're worried and sad. And, Ellie could sit with me and just let me pet her and like rub up against me. That always helped.
He was on the last podcast. He sat on my lap the entire time, and they talk about pets as, I mean, you know, it's a sensory thing, being able to pet them and feel their fur. So when you're really anxious, they can help ground you.
Absolutely.
And I think, they're very intelligent creatures. They can feed off your emotions, so they can tell when you're upset. Come on, buddy.
Come here.
Be a part of it.
Can I pick you up?
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah,
He's
but
gonna eat your hair.
That's okay.
He's gonna have a hairball. I know we also talked about this, I think, at the Y last time. Have you know what disassociation is?
I do.
Have you experienced it at all? Because when you talk about your thoughts and being terrified of them, I think of going through disassociation, and that's where you feel fucking crazy, because it's this. Oh God, it's so hard to describe. It's, if you've only been through it, then you know what I'm saying. But like, it's reality doesn't feel real. Like, that's the best way to describe it. It's this like in between state of consciousness. But then when you have, I mean, for me, I thought I was going crazy. Like, I had all these existential questions about existence. So I was like, this isn't real. Like, this whole thing is fake. This whole thing I'm looking at, like, I would go to work when I was working with Iowa Beverage, and I would be like in a supermarket of like tons of people, and I'm like, like this is just a simulation. Like people are just walking around like this isn't real.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
terrifying.
It is. I experienced that a little bit in high school, probably junior year. Being like alone in my room, like.
You had it in your room. You didn't have it around other people.
Mm-mm.
So what did you go through in your room? Like, what did you feel?
I felt like I wasn't really in my house. Like I wasn't like, I wasn't present. I felt like, and that my parents would be home, and I would think like, you're not really here. Like you're not. I don't know. Hard to describe.
Yeah.
And then in college, my first few weeks of college were really, really hard, and I just like wanted to go home the whole time. It was really hard for me to move away at first, and now I love it, and I'm excited to go back. But there were a few days, I don't know if I was disassociating, but I didn't really leave my room except to get food a couple times, and my friends, like the people that I would talk to every day, I didn't answer anything on my phone except for my mom and dad for 5 or 6 days. Just like I didn't feel like I could. Like,
you feel like you couldn't respond to them?
Yeah,
You didn't know what to say?
I didn't want to. Like I just didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to interact. I don't know. It was a strange feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it is really hard to put a number on what it actually is because it's like the most foreign thing to experience. But at the same time, like once you figure out what it is, it makes sense for the reason, again, going back to like biological purposes, like even mammals, like let's say like antelopes that were getting chased by lions or like wild hogs or something, when they see that predator, it's that fight, flight, or freeze. And so some animals will actually play dead to avoid that. And that's what they're doing is like their mind is becoming numb. So it's like it's actually quite a phenomenal coping mechanism when you have too much stress is that your brain is like, whoa, okay, so much shit is going on right now that we're going to shut off. It's going to make you feel fucking weird, but we're going to shut off so you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you can't shut that off and that initial thing that caused that response in you goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. So, I mean, for me personally, when I was like at the brunt of that, I remember, I had a really bad experience smoking pot and I disassociated like a motherfucker and I had a panic attack. But like weeks after that, like I would go look in the mirror constantly to try and reinforce the idea that this was reality. But like I was so shook by not, again, thinking that I was real. This wasn't real. Nothing that I had ever thought previously was real.
Yeah.
When I looked in that mirror.
I would look at my hands and my arms and I would be like, is this me? Like like I would have to like touch myself and touch things.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
Did you ever have, like some people describe it as like an outer body experience, like a passenger in your own body? Did you ever feel that, like you were kind of like detached from yourself?
Yeah, it's kind of like if you ever take a nap when you don't mean to and you sleep way longer than you mean to and you wake up and you're like just like super disoriented. It's dark outside. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
It feels like the rest of the world is just like going about, but you feel like you're not involved.
Yeah, or it's like your brain, like the way that your brain processes things is like up here and your body is separated from that, even though your body and your brain are working together. Like I remember going to the YMCA, lifting, listening to music, or like shooting hoops, and I felt like I wasn't in control of it. Like I'm like, how is this even happening? Because like this is so distorted. This is so weird. Like the whole motor function in that thing. But somehow I got through it. And I don't know. It's weird to like look back at those times and think about what that feeling was like. Anytime that I've disassociated since then, but it's very brief. It's very quick. It's like when I get really anxious, like it'll happen like for a small second and then I bring myself back. But it's still terrifying. Like no matter if you've spent, years away from disassociation, it still freaks you the fuck out. And I mean, I'm so thankful for things like YouTube, therapy, stuff like that, that gave me a definition for it. It's like, I don't know, how did you find out what it was? You probably didn't know what it was when it was happening, did you?
No, especially the first few times. I thought I was pretty much just having like existential crises, crises. Like, yeah, I think it was a therapist that explained to me. I would say like I just don't feel real. Like nothing would feel real for a little bit, and they were like, yeah, that is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
But,
did that give you some sort of relief because
yes.
you're like, oh, hey, this is real. I'm not crazy.
I'm not crazy, exactly, because that is what's always in the back of my mind is, okay, Gracie, you're going crazy now.
I always thought it was an uncommon thing, but a lot of people that I've talked to have said that they've had a similar experience like that, and I'm like, well, I never knew what that was.
I think that there's an actual disorder.
There is.
Your
DID.
Okay.
Dissociative identity disorder, or maybe that's different. Maybe there's a dissociative disorder. I know there's DID.
Okay, but yeah, I also think it is more of a common little symptom of anxiety than people realize.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and again, as I was telling you earlier, there's things that you could do, like substances that you put in your body that can make you feel that way. So like when you combine caffeine and alcohol, it'll produce that feeling. Or if you smoke weed, it can produce that feeling.
Sure.
That's why I don't touch weed anymore, because it made me feel that way. I was like, yeah, no. And like, not to get into this, but yeah, the weed is so complicated now and how they're making it that it's not even like 50% THC, 50% CBD. That's supposed to be the makeup of the plant, but now it's become like THC is the psychoactive ingredient that makes you get in your head. CBD, you can take CBD on its own to help with anxiety. That's more of like the calming, relaxing agent. But now it's becoming like 90% THC, 10% CBD, and that's what's making you feel like you're out in space. Fuck that shit, man. I'll never go back to that. I had a question. I forgot with anxiety. So, like, do you have like a go-to like mental health toolkit that you use when things are getting bad? Have you found practices other than like when you're really anxious and you're trying to ground yourself? Are there things that you do throughout the day, like journaling?
Yeah, journaling.
Getting rid of the phone. Is there things that you've gone to really help you?
Practicing baton helps me a lot. My solo routines are like just muscle memory. Now I've had them for so long that just like going through those routines releases a lot of energy, and like I don't have to think about it. I just do it, and I know that I'm good at it. So it's like that's something that like no matter what, I can always go to the gym and run through those routines. I pray too. Just like talking to somebody, you're not gonna get like real answers spoken back to you, but like just talking to saying all of your worries out loud.
You pray to a God?
God, yeah.
Okay, so you're Christian, religious?
Christian, yeah.
Okay.
And then I journal a little bit. I don't like to look back at them, and I don't like to, which I probably should, that's like reflection and stuff, but I'll write stuff down and then I'll rip it up, because I don't like to read it again, or I don't know, that might not be a good thing, but
I don't know. Yeah, well, there's been times where like I'll go back and read through some of my old journal entries, but it'll be from a really tough moment in my life, and sometimes I'm like, damn, I really want to like go through and see this time frame, like what was going on in my head, but it is kind of scary to remember that, and then you're reading that in your head. So just kind of like an idea I had is like a lot of people will read self-help books before bed because it's your subconscious, and so then you go to sleep and you've read that in your mind, and then you wake up, sort of like refresher, maybe inspired, whatever it is. So you have to be careful. I mean, I don't think you should like go through and read like a whole month of like a really tough time in your life, but it's good to get reflection on that stuff. That Dr. Matt Maggio guy, he told me he has a journal. I think he has 2 separate journal books, but there's one that on each date it goes for 5 years, and you only write one line. So you know, like say you're on the 5th year of that 5 years, you can see like each year like what you wrote, you know, like where your head was at. I'm like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is.
You know, and everything's all about perspective, like all those things that you went through in the past, and you know, you look at it differently as you get older. Like my hope with all this anxiety and depression is that it's like, I don't think it's ever gonna be fully gone. Like I'm not depressed right now, and I thank God I don't really feel that anxious right now. But you're just gonna get better at handling all of the shit that goes on in your head, or like the way that you act. Like I think as you get older, and then hopefully we'll lose that sense of like wanting to control things. Like I know a lot of, like my mom was even telling me the other day that when she was my age, she felt the same thing, that she needed to constantly be doing something. But as she's gotten older, she's like, you know, let's just chill on the weekend. Let's just like sit inside and watch the movies. Let's like, I cannot sit all day. Like I gotta get up and do something. But like relax and enjoy the fact that like right now, like I have time to play some Red Dead Redemption. Like it's fucking awesome. Yeah. I may not have that next year if we get a vaccine and then we start going out and talking to people again. Right.
So when you are experiencing depression, do you still want to go and do things all the time, or does that turn into, I would love to stay home all day and sit on the couch?
No, I'm one of those like high functioning people that has to keep going. And I see, this is the weird thing, like I don't know how to categorize depression, because this last week or two I was telling you that I'd like kind of been in a rut, and it's a thought process thing though, because then you become, it starts with the anxiety, but then it becomes the obsessive, intrusive thoughts that keep coming in. And then it turns into depression because you keep thinking about those things, and then you can't stop believing in them. And so it's like I was at work last night and I couldn't shake the fact that I felt off. And so we work with people that have disabilities, and I hate when I'm in a mood, because I'm like, that'll play onto them, and they'll have moods too if I'm like that. And I was just like that yesterday. Like I was very short, and like as we were, because they were at the plant when I got there, and we took them from the plant to the house, and you know, I felt like I had all these thoughts coming through that made me feel down, but I'm like, nothing has happened to me in the external world that is actually causing a depression. So it's not depression. It's the anxiety. It's all those thoughts, you know, but then you let that get to you, and then it turns into this sad sort of mood. And then as I was telling you that I have started decreasing my antidepressants, that becomes that first initial like, oh, that's why I'm feeling that way. When in reality, it's not that. It's that I'm worried that it's that. And then you start spiraling. Yeah. But I can't stop moving. Like even when I was at my worst, severely depressed, like I have to keep going. Like
that's interesting.
Yeah, because we were talking about how you sleep for like 16 hours or something. Well, not now, right? You sleep for like 12.
Not as much now. 10 or 12, yeah. I don't know if that's. I'm always kind of a lethargic person. I'm just like always a little sleepy. I don't know if that's I'm just someone that needs a little more sleep, or if that's
you don't need that much sleep.
Yeah. might be a little depression too.
Yeah.
But no, I've been getting out of bed at 7 or 7:30 every day now. I stayed up pretty much every night this week until like 10:30. So when I first moved back home, it was like 8:30 p.m. to 9 a.m. And
you have no choice over that? Like you just feel like passing out at that time? That's so crazy.
I'm staying up
That's
late
so early.
I know. No, I'm doing better with that now. But I like my sleep. That's the time, and a lot of people, when I was younger, I had trouble falling asleep. When I was younger, I had super irrational fears about like horrible things would happen while I was asleep, because I'm such a control freak. Like if I'm not awake, then somebody's gonna break into the house. I always thought that we were gonna get robbed when I was little. That was like huge fear of mine. And because of course that can't happen when I'm awake, because 6-year-old Grace would have stopped it. But I couldn't sleep at all when I was younger, because I had all these like weird irrational fears about falling asleep. But now I can fall asleep anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, that's weird. Because usually anxious people, it's like their mind is racing when it's time to go to bed. It's like you wake up in the middle of the night and your heart's racing, and you're like, for no automatic reason. It's not like I had like a really terrifying dream that like woke me up out of bed.
Right.
Yeah. Do you dream? If you're sleeping for 12 hours, I gotta assume that you're having some pretty intense dreams.
I haven't dreamed much in quite a while.
Really?
Mm-mm. And usually the only dreams I remember are bad ones. Bad dreams.
Are they reoccurring? Do you have reoccurring?
I had reoccurring dreams. I had home invasion nightmares a lot when I was little. Like, that was a huge thing for me. And I think that was a big thing for my dad, too. And he's really careful about, like, triple checking all the doors and windows at night. He's had that fear, too. And we've never been robbed. We've never had it. Well, this is funny.
Hold on.
Last year, I was a senior in high school, and I was homesick. It was my birthday. And we live out in the country, like, we don't get visitors. Somebody was knocking on the door, and I didn't answer because it was the middle of the day. Whatever it was, could have waited. The door press started jiggling, and I, like, started freaking out immediately. I was like, oh, it's finally happening. We're getting robbed. And I'm the only one home to take care of it. So
This is the moment that Grace has been waiting for her entire life.
I went to my room.
Worst nightmares are coming true.
Yep, it's finally happening. I went to my room and I called my dad and I said, like, hey, are we expecting someone? And he said, no. Do you want me to come home? And he's like a 10-minute drive. He was at school. And I was like, yeah, why don't you start coming home? I'm just freaking out now. And the knocking is getting louder and I feel like whoever it is getting angry. So I hang up and I call 911 and they say they're going to send a deputy out, and I just hide in my room, and like I can hear the person in the backyard knocking on the window. Like it was freaky. And the deputy got there and my dad got there and the person was gone. And there were Hy-Vee floral cards on every door and window around our house. And we were like, who is sending us flowers? So weird. It was my ex-boyfriend sending me flowers for my birthday. No. And the Hy-Vee floral man.
He was just really trying to get you those flowers.
Well, and they hire people with special needs. They have. And he saw me through the window and couldn't understand why I wasn't coming to get my flowers. I called the sheriff's deputy.
She's terrified, man.
So no, we haven't been robbed. But that was and I probably didn't sleep very well for a few weeks after that.
Yeah.
The flowers were beautiful, nice gesture, whatever. But but no.
He should know your deepest fear. He should just hand you the flowers in person. God damn it.
Maybe not.
Okay, never mind. Don't do that, man. Stop sending flowers.
But no. So I had a lot of trouble sleeping. I had nightmares about that when I was little. But that was another irrational fear, and I think that's why I'll lock my dorm room and then lay down and then get up after I lay down and unlock it and relock it. Like just.
What does your roommate think about that? Grace, you're fucking nuts.
Probably a little bit.
Have you explained to her, what goes on?
She knows that I'm a little obsessive about that stuff. She's really like carefree and easygoing, which is good because she doesn't get upset about those.
I think either work out really well or really bad, especially when you have a roommate.
Well, she just knows that I like to know if we're gonna have company, and because I'm a pretty introverted person. I like to have my alone time. I found that a lot of college kids don't like to have alone time. They like to be doing stuff and
don't want to deal with their thoughts.
Yeah,
That's why like so many kids our age have to be with other people because they're afraid of being alone. Which I mean, like I get it. That is a scary thing, but I think you have to conquer that. Yeah. The problem is I think I've done very well here at my own apartment, but then it gets to a point where this COVID thing is still going on, and then you're like, well, what do you do when then you finally do want connection? Because I mean, again, like we need to be around people. That produces like very good emotions for humans, and it's like a social requirement, like in our brain. Like I can even tell, like even if I was anxious before to do this podcast and meet up with you, I can tell by now, after we've been talking for however long, I don't feel that anymore.
Yeah, me too.
And I think another thing, like if we're telling people not to interact with each other, I'm wondering if this is changing people, like their thought processes and what's going on in their brain, that like we're de-evolving in some senses, that like, because I've heard from a lot of people in college especially, is that since they haven't been around people so long, when they came back to college, they were like terribly anxious to like finally talk to people.
Overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know where we were going with that. I don't know.
I think I hadn't really thought about that a lot until you started talking about it. But the whole de-evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's happening.
What do you do when you spend time alone? You were saying that you stare at the ceiling.
Yeah.
Is that a way for you to be present? I almost think that could serve as meditation.
Yeah, I think in a way it does. I just have to sit and
How long?
think.
Do you like put a timer? Like you're like what? Like do you feel like somebody like all right now I feel good, now I can get up and go do the next thing.
No, I like that at night. I disconnect from my phone quite a while before I go to bed. Yeah.
It's good.
No, I'll maybe half an hour and then I'll get sleepy and go brush my teeth and then fall asleep.
You take your phone away for half an hour? Or you...
Like I lay in bed and can look at the ceiling.
What do you are you practicing meditation or you're just like...
Not purposely, no.
Like are you... You're just like kind of letting your thoughts go and like seeing what happens?
Mm-hmm.
That's
sit
cool.
and think. Yeah.
That's interesting, yeah, I don't know anybody.
Sometimes like it makes me more nervous and I start thinking more and more and more. Sometimes I can like relax and...
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's a good practice. I think that more people should try that because like my problem is it's weird. It's like you get better at one thing but then you create more problems for yourself. So I don't check my phone. Well, I'll check Snapchat just because I do like Snapchat and the fact that like you can conversate with people and you can just send like funny videos back and forth to your friends and stuff like that. I don't really mind it, but I don't check it until noon. And then, usually I'm working from 2 to 10. I do not check like Facebook, Instagram, Tinder, or Bumble, but after talking to you today, I'm getting the fuck off those. I don't check any of those until like the end of my shift at 10, and it's like for like 30 minutes. But I think that, so then at that point where I haven't been doing that all day, but then that constant scrolling for like 30 minutes back and forth between apps, getting a hold of people, responding, then like I come home and I go on a frenzy to get everything ready before bed. And I really try and meditate before bed. I really try and do gratitude journal before bed. And like there's all these things, but then like I'm in this race to get that all done by the time that I want to go to bed. But then it's like you don't realize that you're making yourself anxious because you're like bouncing around from one activity to the other. So it's like maybe, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't do that. But if I get rid of Tinder and Bumble, then that makes it to where I only have to check 2 apps. I really think they're a waste of time. I mean, you're different than any girl that I've ever met. No one that I talk to my age really like wants to do this stuff, wants to get away from that shit.
No, it's so toxic.
It's so helpful for your brain. Like, I mean, like, when you get away from social media, like, my happiness just increases. It's just, again, it's like, okay, you're getting rid of something that you use for so long, almost as like an outlet, and maybe not to face anxiety or depression. So what do you do now? How do you replace that with something that's more helpful or more productive?
Right. Well, I just feel like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, all of it, you're just seeing people's like highlights, and it's not real, but we tell ourselves that it is. And I think that...
Well, then we compare. We have this comparison syndrome where you're like, well, this is what they have, or Sally and this guy are in a relationship, and I'm not in a relationship. And it's like if you are unhappy, it can make you more unhappy.
Exactly, yeah. You're just constantly comparing yourself.
How did you hear about The Social Dilemma? Did you just see it on Netflix and watched it?
Yeah.
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 What did you think about it? What did you think afterwards?
It was really interesting.
Like,
it's
fucking
scary.
throw your phone in the
yes,
trash.
it's scary. It's scary to think about, but I think everyone should watch it. I think everyone...
Isn't it interesting that, like, based on, like, what you view, and this even happens on YouTube, which I like YouTube way more than any other social media app, but they base it off of, like, what you're looking at. So they have this algorithm in place to keep you on it. And, like, really it's sinister, but at the same time, it's like it's your own doing, too. Like, you have to realize that there has to be a cutoff point. Like, you have to put limitations on your phone. You have to put limitations on video games. Or, YouTube, that's one big thing of mine. Like, I would go on, like, YouTube rabbit holes. But I say now, like, if I do check it, like, you get 3 videos. That's it. And then you're done.
Yeah. They say that you know, the actual app isn't the product. You are the product, and your
Yeah.
attention is the product. I think that's terrifying.
That's true.
It's
That's
crazy.
true.
Yeah.
That's why nobody our age can hold conversations, because they're constantly distracted all the fucking.
Woo!
Holy fuck, that was loud. Damn, it's already
45 minutes.
Holy shit. I feel like we were just getting started. Let's just do 10 more minutes and then we'll stop it.
Okay.
My goodness, I woke Miller up.
Sorry, Miller.
You asswipe. Yeah, that's one of the scariest things from that documentary is how they're capitalizing on people, and I don't know. How do you really check it throughout the day?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Just
Like
for a
here
few
and there?
minutes at a time, yeah.
I just feel though, like when I do check it, I'm like, and then I'm done. I'm like, I didn't really get anything out
No,
of it.
you don't.
You know
But
what I
it's
mean?
like, it is. I've noticed it did become for me like, if I'm just sitting there doing nothing, reach for my phone. Like, God forbid I sit there and reflect about how my day's been or what else I need to do. Like, I have to have something in my hand, something to look at.
Did you start doing this after watching the documentary, or were you doing this before?
I was doing this before, just because, especially in high school and like just I don't know, the whole like it's way more positive than it was, like the whole body positivity movement and things are a lot better than it was when I was in middle school on social media, but it's just like it's not hard to see that it's not good for you to be looking at like edited pictures and people's like clothes and look at how much fun they're having without you. Here's something you weren't invited to. Here's a picture of a model that's done this and this and this. Like it's just it's not hard when you think about it for 2 seconds. It's not good for me, but
the really interesting thing about the documentary and what I think of is like, you know, people are so involved in this that they don't realize what's actually going on to them, but when you have that moment of separation, like maybe I like how they compare technology, the phone, social media use as like you're in the matrix, you're in the machine, but once you take 1 foot out and you broke the cycle, now you have a chance, like that's the victory right there, is to take that pause, because then you can actually think about it and change it. And I also like how it's that bigger dude that has dreadlocks.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't expect to get everybody, by watching this documentary, they're going to get off their phone. But like, if we can just create like a section of people that aren't addicted to their phone, then we can have this conversation, because they're all like, I mean, I know so many people, like family members, you were saying you got rid of like so many people on social media, past girls that I was with that are like involved in that shit, and they are so embroiled that they cannot get out of it, and that like they're obsessed, you know, and it's like it's interfering with everything they do. Like when you can't go, you know, even like 5 to 10 minutes without checking your phone, like that's a fucking problem.
I know.
That's an addiction.
And it's so dangerous too, all of the misinformation that there is. Like people,
all the fucking wonkiness
people
of politics.
really think, well, politics and like just fake news stories,
Fake
nothing.
shit.
Yeah, not even, that's not benefiting politicians, or just like stupid made up stuff. Like people really will believe anything they read on their phone.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
I mean, I'm not trying to get too much into conspiracies or anything else, but I think a lot of like what's going on this year with politics, with the coronavirus, BLM, like all this shit, I don't believe all of it, because I don't think that people have any sense of like thinking for themselves. I don't think people think for themselves. So they take everything that they see like on social media or on the news at face value, and they accept that. And I think you have to be critical. Now, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, the coronavirus is a hoax, but the media, the way that they portray things and talk about things, creates a narrative for people to follow. And like, okay, maybe I'll catch flack for this, but I'm just gonna say it. Like the shit that happened up in Minnesota with George Floyd, like, yes, it was wrong. Yes, that cop should be reprimanded. Like he was fucked up for doing that. The people see that on social media. The media covers that, and then we have this reactionary world where it spreads like a virus, and then everyone's like, you know, like the cops are fucked up, you know, that system is fucked up, we should defund the police, like all that. And like that is such a from seeing that one particular thing that happened up in Minnesota, that's how everybody reacted. And it's like, defund the police? Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go defund the police. You're not going to have anybody to protect you. Yeah, we should change the way that these guys get hired and the system in place for them to be, you know, part of like officials, law enforcement. But that's our world. That's what happens when the shit gets put out there. Is everybody sees, like even the riots too. Like you see like a small portion of like chaos, and maybe like 80% of that protest was peaceful.
Peaceful, yep.
You know, but people got their phones and they got that 10-second clip where, you know, cop is like hitting some dude. What if that guy was provoking the cop the entire time? You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's just no middle ground anymore.
There's no conversation.
Yeah, and I think that social media makes that worse. Like it could be such a helpful tool for spreading information and seeing other people's opinions, but it's really just become a place to disrespect others and further separate people's beliefs and
that's
opinions.
what they talk about in the documentary, because since you're like on like any of these social media apps, you see more of what you're looking at. That's just going to further solidify the idea in your head or your stance. So it's not that you're not able to have the conversations with the opposing side. It's that you're not seeing the opposing side.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really have that conversation. Then,
right.
You know, I think that once you get all those likes and validation on your own shit, you know, that makes you feel good. Like, oh, look at all these people that think the same way that I do. You know, and then you get in this big, massive blowout and disagreement, and it's happening with family members. Like it's happening in my family too. It's like it's all over the place. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm a very optimistic person. That was the other thing about the documentary. Like, it's good for anything. And then we were talking about back issues earlier. Like, we need to be able to paint the picture of like what is going to go wrong if we continue doing this thing. So they were all saying on that documentary that they could envision in 20 to 30 years like a civil war. Mm-hmm. It's like, I kind of believe that. Yeah. If people become more and more divided over the years.
It is. Everything is so divisive.
In the relationships with people, like, you know, like we were saying earlier too, like men are weak, you know, they can't go up and approach a girl because they're so used to porn being thrown at them, or then they're on they think that like hookup culture is natural, which it's never been natural for civilizations. Like no solid relationship stands on cheating on the other person or like having multiple sexual partners. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's like, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of lonely to be in this part of society that's trying to get away from those things because everybody else is so engulfed in it. Like, do you feel that way? I don't know, I feel like, not that you're an outsider, but you have a different perspective than most people. Do you find it hard to meet people that think the same way that you do?
Yeah, my very best friend in college, she's a lot like me. She does a really good job disconnecting from her phone. I feel like a lot of people just don't see the bigger picture anymore. Everyone is so focused on themselves and their image. People are missing out on, like, there's so much more world around us than we realize, and I feel like younger people, and I think technology plays a big part in that, are like just missing out on so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like there's people that I know that invest more time into a caption of a photo than like a project in school, or like that, like things that they want to do on their own. You know, like passions that they want to pursue, or like hobbies. Like nobody is willing to like stick with something and get good at it. But you'll see like everything good that they've done on social media, and I mean, you really have to be careful with that stuff, because that will infiltrate your thoughts, because you're getting all that stuff from the outside world. So like, just, that's the weird thing. It plays on our psychology as humans for like connection and desire to be around others. And if you're not really getting that, and then you go on there, you become more depressed. You become more distant, and you're like,
a cycle.
I don't have what they have. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, should I just get off of social media entirely? I'm like, it sounds like a good idea, but maybe that like 5 to 10% of the day where I'm checking it is helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I just feel like I don't know if I am ready to do that yet. Like I know how bad it is for you, but like I still do enjoy.
What do you like looking at, like on social media?
I just like to see what people are up to. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're
It's
kind of
entertaining.
invasive.
I am.
What you were telling me about at the Y, like that secret shit your deep search process.
Yeah. Well, I really could be working for the FBI. I think with my
That might be a career
internet
field for
stalking,
you in the
but-
future. There's the second timer. All right, Grace. Well, I think we'll end it there. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for grabbing coffee
This
with
was
me.
fun, yeah.
It's delicious. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.